I remember when I just finished the day at dyslexia camp, and I was exhausted. I looked up to my tutor and broke down completely. My annoyance and constant having to work harder than all of my peers had boiled up until I snapped. And then, 10 minutes later, after crying my eyes out completely, I pulled myself together, and then I thought of a question that would change the course of my life. What if my greatest weakness and struggle of dyslexia was actually the creator of my superpower? I have dyslexia and cell processing time. And what you probably think of when you hear that is the stigma, the struggle, the weakness. You probably think about how summer after summer, when all my friends get off and go hang out, have fun, whatever it is, I have needed to work. And not just work day in, day out, but instead work at the thing that I was the worst at. Consistently read out loud, write essays after essays, and then after doing all of that and being so exhausted, finishing the day to start another one and repeat the process. This you might think of as a struggle. You might think about how this was super annoying, and it was. At times, I couldn't believe how much I had to work and how challenging my life was. But instead, I reframed the story. I thought of this super challenging fact of my severe dyslexia instead as my superpower. I held my once annoyance and created it into my now strength. Because my work ethic, 100% in language arts, English, whatever it is, transferred to the rest of my life. Meaning that in things that I am strong at and have huge strengths in, I didn't just work to get it done. My 100% became my average, meaning that in tennis, when all my friends during the school day might go and play for 15 hours a week, I would practice 30 hours a week. And then, when all my friends would get out for playing in the summer, and they might play twice a day, which is something like 30 hours a week, I would practice 70 hours a week. Meaning that this, once first thought of weakness, became my superpower. So let's think about this in a more general context, a more general term. Let's say every single time you get from point A to point B, let's say in writing an essay, working out, playing a sport, whatever it is, you need to get from point A to point B. And every single time you get from point A to point B in this certain project, you see your friends. Let's say it's basically a mile to get from point A to point B. You see them walking from point A to point B, but you have a mountain named Unfair Mountain in between point A and point B. And at first, you think about how this sucks, how unfair this is. You think about the fact that you're not just going to have to climb this mountain once, twice, maybe 3 times. Instead, you need to consistently climb this mountain tens of hundreds of thousands of times. And you think about how annoying that would be. But instead, what if you thought about it as, once you take away this mountain, and all you have to do is walk from point A to point B, your legs are going to be so much stronger. Your mind is going to be so much stronger. Meaning that from point A to point B, you're not just going to walk from point A to point B a mile like everyone else. You're going to lengthen point A and point B, and you're going to sprint from point A to point B to not just finish the project, but go above and beyond. And then you're going to consistently do it over and over again, because this first thought of weakness and struggle is actually a gift as it strengthens you. So what if we think about Unfair Mountain in another perspective? Let's say a physical perspective. As a tennis player, if I were to break my wrist, what you'd think of is the fact that I'm not going to be able to hit forehands, backhands, slices, volleys, overheads. You think about the fact I'm not going to be able to do 200 push-ups, and it's going to suck. And that's true. At times, it is going to suck. But if you reframe your story, you can say, I'm going to go to practice every single day. I'm just going to practice my lefty forehands over and over and over again. And then, after practice, when all your friends are working out and doing those 200 push-ups, you're going to practice your one-handed lefty push-ups over and over and over again. Meaning that once your hand heals up, you're going to get back to tennis, and your once greatest struggle and weakness of your backhand is going to become your now greatest strength. Because those one-handed lefty forehands will make it so that you can place the ball so much better. Those one-handed push-ups means that you can push through the ball so much harder, making this first thought of huge weakness and struggle actually a gift. If and only if you reframe your story. So let's think about reframing your story in another perspective. Let's say someone who has ADHD. When you think of someone who has ADHD, you think about the fact that, oh, maybe they can't focus for as long. Maybe they have to stand up and walk around. Maybe they might distract some other people. But instead, you can reframe your story. You can say, someone with ADHD might be able to go run a marathon in world record pace. Then while everyone else is on the ground, super exhausted, they're jumping up and down. And then they can go run another one. What if you also reframed your perspective? So let's say someone who's neurotypical might think of ideas like idea here, idea here, idea here, idea here. But if someone with ADHD holds and reframes their story, they can go idea, 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 great idea, great idea. Meaning that this once first thought of struggle is actually a superpower. So let's think about neurodiversity in one last perspective. Let's say apraxia of speech. I was born with apraxia of speech. And what you're probably thinking is, why would you be up there doing a presentation to so many people when theoretically that's the hardest thing you could physically do when you were born? And yes, that is true. It does mean that when my friends learned enunciation, let's say ABCs, they might have practiced for 50 hours. Whereas I needed to practice from 500 to 1,000 hours. And then after putting all of that extra work in, still seeing on a day-to-day basis, my struggles come to light. But I'm here to tell you to find those struggles, find those challenges because of unfair mountain. See, for me with my apraxia of speech, unfair mountain, I don't know what strength I'm creating. I don't know how I'm strengthening my mind, my legs, my body. But I know that because I have to do something differently than all my peers, that I am creating so many strengths. So I think we should think about unfair mountain and change the name to work hard mountain. Because when you think about, let's say, running a mile, working out, bench pressing, you don't think of it as a disadvantage. Instead, you think about it as a struggle, which then strengthens you, strengthens those muscles because you need to do something differently. Meaning that this first thought of struggle, of unfair mountain, could actually be a gift once you reframe your story. So how can you reframe your story right now? First, grab a notepad and a pen. And if you're online, feel free to pause to keep up with this exercise. Okay. First, write down your biggest, most annoying weakness and struggle. For me, this is my severe dyslexia. Okay. Once you've done that, write down how this super annoying, challenging thing is creating unfair mountain. How is it making your point A to point B different than everyone else, in turn, strengthening something. For me, this is my severe dyslexia, making it so I have to work harder and longer than all my peers and work through the annoyance and challenge. Okay, number 3, write down how unfair mountain is creating work hard mountain. Write down what strength is being held and defined by this first seen weakness. For me, this is my severe dyslexia causing my consistent work ethic in language arts, which then transferred to the rest of my life, creating my tenacity, work ethic, and determination to do anything I put my mind to. Okay, so now when someone says weakness, you say superpower. Thank you so much.